Hello, everyone, and welcome to today's CRM Magazine web event brought to you by Calabrio, Looker, and NICE Nexidia. My name is Bob Fernikes, and I'm the publisher of CRM Magazine, and I'll be the moderator for today's broadcast. Our presentation today is titled Advanced Analytics for Better Customer Experiences. Before we start, I'm just going to explain how you can participate in this live broadcast. At the end of the event, we'll have a question and answer session. So if you have a question during the presentations, just type it into the question box provided and click on the submit button. We'll try to get to as many questions as possible, but if for some reason we can't get to yours, don't worry. We'll follow up within a few days by email. Plus, if you'd like a copy of the presentation, you can download a PDF from the resource icon once the event is archived. Now to introduce our speakers for today. We've got Doug Zimmerman, Contact Center Speech Analyst at Calabrio. We've got Jiro Weissman, Manager Customer Support at Looker, and Abby Monaco, Senior Product Marketing Manager at NICE Nexidia. If you'd like to review the speakers' bios, just click on the arrows under their photos, and you can read all about them. So now I'm going to pass the event over again to Doug Zimmerman. He's the Contact Center Speech Analyst at Calabrio. Welcome to the broadcast, Doug.
Thanks, Bob. Appreciate it. Good afternoon, everyone. Again, my name is Doug Zimmerman. I'm an analytics consultant with Calabrio. At Calabrio, we believe business at the most basic level is an interaction between two human beings, and we help your company unlock the value and drive growth by honing in on these everyday interactions. We're all about unlocking the true voice of the customer and delivering what customer-centric organizations crave, that is the ability to make every interaction engaging, insightful, and profitable. It's quite simple, really. We deliver technology and solutions that empower more human interactions. A little about me. I've been in this space in contact centers for over 20 years, serving a number of different companies in a number of different verticals. And as you can see, I've served in a number of different capacities. I'm kind of like the guy in the Farmers Insurance commercial. I know a thing or two because I've seen a thing or two, right? Let's talk a little bit about analytics. What is it? At Calabrio, we view it as a set of tools that provide business intelligence by uncovering content that might otherwise go unnoticed. And why do we want to do that? Well, it's because we have questions, things that we want to understand, like what are the top reasons for short calls? What if we could eliminate short calls? Which agents have long call outliers, or what's the root cause? What might be impacting talk time or forecasting accuracy? A few of my favorites, what calls are my best practice calls, the ones that I want to keep and use in my new hire training, and maybe can I find some poor interactions on which to train too, right? But where do we start? For me, when I work with our customers, I put it in terms of questions like these. What keeps you up at night when you think about your call center? What would customers say are barriers to a successful interaction with your agents? Or what hoops do your customers or your agents have to jump through to have that successful interaction? Another way to look at it is like when I was in operations, I'd ask myself, what information or reports do I have to give to my senior leadership every month? And every time I pull the data, I cringe. And gee, wouldn't I love to be able to take some action to improve that? Look, your contact center is more than just a cost center. It is the most strategically important space across the entire customer journey, and it's a gold mine for customer insights. With analytics, you can capitalize on all of the secrets buried in those millions of calls, emails, texts, tweets, chats, secrets that can help you retain your current customers and attract new ones. Analytics can help you deliver amazing customer experiences, help you uncover what we like to see, say, our transformational insights, and it can help you build a brand that your customers absolutely love. Today I'm going to share some of my thoughts on these topics and why you want to use advanced analytics to move through these stages of understanding what happened on your calls, identifying the root cause or the effect of why something happened, and then taking action to improve upon it. Using analytics, we move past the traditional ACD metrics of handle time and after call work, and even to a certain extent the quality evaluation scores, we start monitoring and reviewing performance using a lens from the customer, the agent, and the organizational perspective. And for my examples today, I'm going to be referencing a customer's desire to reduce held calls. It's one that we hear frequently, right? First, we want to understand what happened. From our ACD reports and maybe from our customer comments, we understand and can recognize that our agents maybe are placing too many callers on hold. Within Calabrio One Analytics, we can also see phrases which typically surface related to being on hold or placing a caller on hold. Phrases such as, "Thanks for holding," or "Can I place you on hold?" It's pretty basic. This is pretty simple reporting, right? This type of analytics is good for reporting. It's good for informational purposes. It's really good for looking back. But really, you want more than this. You need more than this. Drilling down into the calls, though, we can begin the identification stage of analytics. Without even listening to the calls, we can see other phrases which surface, such as help desk, as in, I need to call my help desk. Or other phrases such as, let me check, or, I'm not sure. At this point, we're diagnosing the held call problem, and we can begin to see a correlation between held calls and lack of knowledge. And within our Data Explorer, we could easily create a list of calls on which these two call drivers, that is held calls and lack of knowledge, a list of calls on which these two drivers exist. And at this point, we've uncovered or started uncovering kind of the why behind the what, right? Why are we putting so many people on hold? From there, we move to predictive analytics. And predictive really encompasses a variety of techniques from data mining, predictive modeling, machine learning, techniques that analyze current and historical facts to make predictions about the future or unknown events. In other words, we're using data from descriptive and diagnostic analytics, the things that we've seen before, and using that, we can predict customer sentiment, predict customer actions, predict customer satisfaction. We can predict customer retention. It really is the ability to foresee what will likely happen based on what already has. The ability to score every customer contact, really. Imagine if you could place a value on every call, on every email, on every text, and you could quickly and easily identify contacts that are outside of your norms, outside of your boundaries, or outliers. And imagine having greater confidence in your decisions because you're basing them on 100% of your interactions, not the 2% of calls that a quality management team might typically evaluate. Imagine being able to create a predictive Net Promoter Score for every single customer, whether or not they've actually even taken a survey, and then reaching out to your detractors with confidence in your engagement efforts. Predictive really is the what if. The next part is really the what should, as in what should we do? What changes do we need to make in our operation, in our processes, to our work, in light of what we've uncovered? If the issue with held calls was driven primarily due to lack of agent knowledge, how do you address that? It might mean additional training. It might mean revising your FAQs or your help documents. It might be removing barriers from a process. Listen, companies pay small fortune for direct from customer insights that can be used to design new products and services. And analyzing your contacts merely to review the past isn't providing the kind of value you want or need. The insight you need has always been in your contact center, again, buried in those mountains of unintelligible data. We work with you to make these insights actionable, transformational. We want to use them to help you deliver what customers want when they want it. When you do this, you get loyal customers who never want to leave. And a loyal customer is incredibly valuable. And that's why advanced analytics is so valuable to your company, creating that experience. But why Calabrio? Well, we make it simple. Our comprehensive suite of products includes speech analytics, desktop analytics, text analytics. We can transcribe your calls. We support a number of different languages. We seamlessly integrate with your communications and your CRM systems, enabling omnichannel customer experiences. And we have the ability to deliver automated customer sentiment scores for every interaction. I have a couple more examples of different dashboards of different things that we've created through the years to help our customers understand their contact center and provide a better experience. Perhaps your goal is around first call resolution. With our analytics tools, we can help you understand why customers call, uncover the root causes of repeat efforts, help you recognize the burden this places and will continue to place on your contact center, and help you build strategies to resolve the issues. With this dashboard, we're confirming the corrective actions we took are being effective. Perhaps you're more concerned with customer effort or service barriers. We can help you with that too. If certain processes cause a bottleneck or if policies are keeping your agents from delivering the desired experiences, let's uncover those too. On this sample dashboard, we continue to review the correlation between call efficiency, negative sentiment, and positive sentiment. Have another dashboard. This one addresses the issues with negative sentiment and escalation management. With Calabrio, we help you see the pain points. We help you know your customers' needs before they're spoken. We help to resolve issues faster, and we help you deliver more personalized interactions with predictive analytics tools. We help you know your customer, understand their needs, their frustrations, and see how your brand fits in their lives. And speaking of brands, we can help you create a consistent brand experience, aligning the contact center with brand initiatives and delivering a consistent customer experience at every touch point. Listen, we know you want transformation, and Calabrio is here to make sure that transformation delivers great outcomes for your organization. Using Calabrio Advanced Analytics can help you deliver amazing customer experiences, help you uncover transformational insights, and help you build a brand that customers absolutely love. Thanks very much. That's my presentation. Back to you, Bob.
Hey, thanks so much, Doug. I'm sure all these tools would have made your life a lot easier when you're on the operations side of things. But I guess that's the way technology is. Things go
right.
get
Couldn't
better.
agree more.
All right. Okay, so now I'm going to pass the event over to Jiro Wiseman. Again, he's the manager of customer support at Looker. Welcome to the broadcast, Jiro.
Hey, thank you, Bob. Again, my name is Jiro Wiseman. What I'm going to present to you here today has actually very little to do with Looker itself. It's something that's come out of us being on the road, talking with our customers. And I think when we move into advanced analytics, it kind of implies we're moving beyond what you may do at an operational level to kind of keep the ship moving. And what we found was really helpful was a framework on how to move beyond that. I think this is a framework that you can use regardless of what analytics tool you're using. There's certain things about Looker that make this a bit easier or that work well with it. But if you have questions about Looker itself, I think you can follow up with the contact information at the end. To give you a little framework of where I'm coming from here, this is some basics about Looker and where the context of what I'm going to be talking to you about comes from. We do most of our support through the chat medium. So these are live interactions with our customers. Our team spent just over 1 million minutes with our customers in 2017. So high touch, and our customer audience is actually quite technical. Our product itself is what you may consider to be a pro tool. There's a lot of customer input on the shape of it, the feel of it, the advanced level of analytics that you can achieve, and that's something you would do as a Looker customer. So our team is supporting that success and is a crucial part in the success of our customers with the product itself. Also, the framework I'm going to talk to you about comes largely from this book, The 4 Disciplines of Execution. And if you want to read more about the framework, I encourage you to do so. So diving in here, I wanted to provide a few pitfalls that I think that all of us living in the analytics world are kind of going towards that promised land of success through data is that the data will speak for itself. I think it's amazing to surface these insights, and often our data teams are doing that, and they find themselves coming up against what I'm going to speak towards is a challenge of changing human behavior. If you want to advance the quality of your customer experience through your customer-facing teams, then you're coaching and changing behavior. And as a leadership team, we need to be really well prepared for that. So one of the things we learned early on is that we can only commit that type of effort towards really important goals. So we focused in on just two at the beginning of the year, and I think that created a very valuable level of alignment from our leadership all the way down through our frontline support analysts. So those three things are really important regardless of what you choose. I've kind of broken out this framework into 6 steps here. You will go initially, if you do choose to follow this type of framework with whatever tool that you're choosing, you'll go all the way through 6, but you will live in 5 and 6 continuously through this process. Initially, this exercise may start with leadership when you set this in motion. The insights themselves often can come from the front lines or your customers themselves, but the start of this process comes from leadership focusing in on what's really going to move the needle in your customer experience. It may be a little bit different depending on your industry, your product, what team you're looking at. But for us, it was the ability to save our customers in the moment. Again, this is a tool that they're trying to do very advanced things with, and we needed to help them move through as quickly as possible. So when I move into our context, that's kind of where that's going to focus. But we really needed to spend time at the leadership level, and similar to what Doug had talked about, it's drilling into the why things are happening if we notice a trend. We kind of dipped in and out of our leadership circle and our front lines to better understand the goal and kind of build some more data around it. This is kind of what it looked like for us. We're seeing a little bit of a change in our customer satisfaction. It was nothing particularly alarming, but it's a trend that we really wanted to get ahead of. So that's where we started, and we wanted to use an advanced level of analytics to solve this problem. But this statement alone is not clear enough for us to act on. So from there, we move to step 2. We need to really develop clear goals around this. And what I think is valuable in the framework here is the last bullet point here, is that the goals must be clear so that nobody has to look back at a sheet and say, oh, what was that goal again? It's something that's easy to consume and share and remember. It's measurable. We can't have this be qualitative if we're going to hold people against it. Achievable in the sense that we're not giving people too much of a mountain to climb, and also time-oriented to create a sense of urgency. It's very important to spend time in this process to get it right, because again, we're setting into a larger motion. If we're going to change behavior, that's going to take time, and we really need to invest at the leadership level before we really push this out in order to get where we need to go. So this is what that initial, what we did in moving in between leadership and our boots on the ground, so to speak, is we found that a lot of the negative CSATs came from longer interactions where it took us longer to get the customer that was talking to us where they needed to be. And we settled on the 30-minute mark. It was easy to remember and kind of line up with the big chunk of data that we saw. And so we set the components that I kind of shared with you. It's easy to remember. It's measurable, 26 to 20%. 20% change in that amount was something we thought was achievable, and we had an end date for it. That came to the presentation stage. This is really important. And again, all of this is about creating alignment, about creating momentum in your organization, and that comes from the leadership level. At the time that we present this, you need to have everybody understand why it's important, where the data is coming from behind it, and how to field questions that may come up as you spread this to the larger group. Any kind of discrepancy between leadership on what the numbers mean, why it's important, et cetera, can kind of hurt the momentum there. So it's important to spend time and present this from the top level of whatever, maybe that's your company, maybe that's your department. In our case, it came from our director at an all-hands meeting. And so it really reinforced the importance of we are advancing our level of customer experience, and this is important all the way to the top. And that moves into empowering your team to pursue these metrics. And those are metrics that they will help create themselves. And this is where the kind of the flexibility and the self-service nature of Looker comes in handy, is that we really involved our ground level people in developing the things that would ultimately they would act upon. So if you've never heard someone talk about lead versus lag metrics, the lag metric would be the goal that I presented, changing the duration of chat, average chats from 26% to 20 that were over 30 minutes. That's not something that's directly actionable. And I think an easy way to communicate this is if you're trying to lose weight, you can't directly change the number that's on the scale. But what you can do is change the calories that you intake or the amount of calories you burn. And that's what we're really after here. And we relied on our team leads to really drive this with their people. Again, this involved them in the goal itself. They were our people on the front line who are actually going to be carrying out this work were involved in the process of creating the metrics that they ultimately would move the needle on our top level goals. So these are a few of they're a little bit abstracted, but I also put in brackets or parentheses at the end who it was that was doing this or what level in our support organization. And again, this speaks to only tackling a couple goals. It creates an alignment from the top to the bottom. So our frontline people were able to flag interactions for review from somebody who is a subject matter expert or perhaps their team lead. And that allowed them to learn. We identified that there were knowledge gaps in our front line. So that was one way that we were able to directly address those in the moment and over time. We also found, like some of our more senior people who had been here for a long time identified common patterns that customers would need to get through, and that while we did have documentation to help them navigate those specific use cases, we actually created advanced level versions of those so that if one of those interactions landed on chat, we could provide them with this in-depth, targeted, really robust resource. We also developed internal trainings from our senior technical staff around the subjects that typically led to a longer chat interaction. And then also even at the director level, we partnered with our professional services team to react to issues that we saw with a particular customer they were already working with or provide advanced level trainings for those customers. And it kind of creates that alignment that our next level of analytics was showing and reflecting the problem that we saw. The next portion is to discuss these metrics regularly. I think having this cadence of regular dashboarding around this next level of analytics that you're rolling out to your team is super important to keep it top of mind, and also to allow you to coach on those direct behaviors that your frontline people are trying to learn to do themselves and improve upon. And this is a process that you will continue throughout this framework. The last portion here is really important to celebrate and share your progress towards that goal. Again, we distributed the solution process across our teams, and that meant that there were iterations on what exactly they were doing, and it was really empowering for our frontline people and for our team leads to come back to the broader group and say, hey, we tried this, we're successful with it, and then enable the other teams on how to do that themselves. It was a really positive team-building exercise to work together across the different levels of our department amongst each other to really make progress toward the goal. And again, leadership is important to be bought into this. And if these are top-level goals that are going to move the needle for your department, then I think it's easy to devote that time. This is a really kind of quick run-through of those 6 steps. Again, I encourage you to ask questions, reach out afterwards on how we deploy this process. And if you want details about how we use Looker as a product to support this workflow or this framework, we're happy to field those as well. And yeah, I encourage you to ask questions away when we get to the QA section. That's it, Bob. Thank you.
Hey, great. Thanks so much, Jiro. And as Jiro said, please, if you do have any questions for any of our panelists, just type them into the question box, hit submit, and we'll follow up when we get to the Q&A section. Now I'm going to introduce Abby Monaco. She's Senior Product Marketing Manager at NICE Nexidia. Welcome to the broadcast, Abby.
Thank you. So I love that I'm following Jiro, because a lot of what I wanted to talk about today is very much that making sure that leadership is really behind you And I thought, let's talk about some target areas for improving customer experience, because the customer experience topic is a very difficult one to grapple with when you're looking at it in that broad sense. So, just as a sort of an overview, we are in a customer experience economy. And how are we going to create these exceptional customer experiences? Well, the only way we can do this is by knowing and understanding our customers. And the really interesting thing about this is that we know we're in this customer experience economy, and yet only 17% of companies are satisfied with their ability to use that data to really create an amazing customer experience program. So we're still fighting at the beginning of this movement into this customer experience economy, knowing where we want to go, of course, but how do we do it? And that's why I thought today would be very interesting if we kind of look very, very simply. I think that, in all the time that I've spent talking to people and seeing their reaction to the ideas and all of this thing, everybody has a really lofty goal. And it always comes down to, whoa, where do I start? I need a starting point. And so I thought, hey, let's look at it today from some really simple starting points. And that is, number one, we've got to listen to our customers. Number two, maybe you need to look at your router. That's something that I think a lot of people overlook. It's seen as a mechanical tool, not necessarily something that can work for you, in a positive way for your customer. And then, of course, analyze. We know that we want analytics. Analytics lives and breathes in the solution to create a better customer experience. So if I can go back to this first point, if you want them to listen, talk your language. It's a very interesting quote from Tybee Collar. He studied human beings and personalities and found that he was able to accurately identify 6 main personalities. Now, isn't that interesting that you can actually bucket everybody into these 6 personality types? So knowing that, what if you had a router that was listening? What if you had automatic artificial intelligence that was sitting there listening to the people calling in and saying, oh, wait a minute, that person called in before. That person was talking to XYZ agent and had a really good experience, or that person was talking to a different agent and didn't have such a good experience. Well, that's what predictive behavioral routing does. And that right there is a very simple starting point to creating a really interesting and dynamic customer experience. What it does is it listens. It knows, over time how to identify the personality of that person calling in. And it also knows how to identify positive or negative experiences based on which agent that type of person may have spoken to. And so the interesting thing here is that it doesn't matter if you are one of these 4, organizer, connector, advisor, or original. It matters if you are having a positive experience with the other person on the other side. So maybe I'm an organizer and I really want to get my problem solved quickly. Well, maybe a connector is a really good person for me. We don't know, but the data is in there. The AI is in there, and it's matching these personalities. And the lift, amazingly enough, all this thing does is it sits on top of the router, and it's just this, one for one. It just asks and tells and asks and tells. And over time, it can actually provide a 6%, on average, a 6% decrease in average handle time, which in a large contact center can be quite a bit of a lift. Not only, if you have quicker handle times, you have better customer satisfaction. That is a better customer experience. It is very much like the new concept in that customer experience age. So it's something to consider. It's an easy starting point. It gives people that, oh, wow, look at what we just did. Let's move forward. Let's do more. So looking into what more can you do with your router? I mean, I'm still talking router. This is really kind of a fun thing, in my opinion, is, if you have a sophisticated router, this might not be for you if you're in the audience and you have a very simple integrated voice response system, that just doesn't need much, maybe this isn't for you. But if you do have one that's complicated, there is a lot of value to be had in there. So one of the difficulties people have with these IVR systems is they don't really have the ability to visualize them. And if you look at the bottom of that triangle, there's that notion of, it's a tool. It's just simply a tool. So we're just going to figure out our patterns, set them, make sure they work, and forget about it. But again, don't forget about the value that's in there. So if you look up that triangle, you're seeing that there's a sophistication that builds upon itself, where people might be thinking, oh, well, you don't want to, in best practices, you don't want to give everybody an easy out necessarily. You don't want to contain them so fully in the integrated voice response system that they can't get to an agent and make them super mad. There's all kinds of thought process that has to go into this. So on the top of that triangle, what if you could actually apply analytics to your integrated voice response system? Now, how neat would that be? Because what you could actually do here is visualize that customer's journey. You can and we're talking micro journey, just within that integrated voice response system. And you can find failure points. You can find where traffic drops out constantly, where they're constantly going to an agent. Well, maybe there's something that can be improved where they don't really need to go to the agent. There's just something wrong. And what if you can reduce the steps in the IVR? There are analyses that can be applied that can actually look at that traffic and say, well, gosh, you could reduce a great number of your traffic that's dropping out simply by switching, say, option 1 with option 3, because everybody's hitting 113. Well, what if they could just hit 13, something like that? So believe it or not, this is very simplistic, very logic-based, but believe it or not, if you were actually to apply analytics to this one pinpointed area, you might actually realize enough cost savings, again, that leadership turns their head again. And I still haven't even gone outside of routing at this point. So think of the simple starting points. That's really what I'm here to say today. And then, of course, analytics. Speech and text analytics is really the crux of all of this. So now that we're past the router, the integrated voice response system, now we're in the contact center. Now what's happening? What's happening in the interactions with your customers and your agents? Well, number one, look at this channel adoption rate. We know that the phone is never going to go away. When I have a serious problem, I'm going to pick up the phone and call. So that is your number one most important channel. But what about all these growing channels? Look at the email, the chat, even social. Social is becoming a channel by which our customers interact with us. So are you pulling all of these interactions in, and are you analyzing them? That is very, very important. And again, I think in the customer experience world, still we're having some struggles with, how to make that work. And in the age of big data, I think that it's important to realize that we are beyond big data. We all get it. We're all holding on to all of this data, but are we using it? Are we democratizing it in a way where you can actually pull out across all of your channels? I mean, we're up to, I think the average number of channels is 8 or more in a contact center that are actually being pulled in. Now, are we analyzing all of them? That's really the important piece, is to look at your data. It doesn't matter where it came from. It's still an interaction. And your customers, if you're not listening, if your AI system isn't listening, if you're not working to predict, if you're not working to understand sentiment levels based on certain topics, you're not ever going to be able to compete with that other contact center in that other company that you are trying to compete with. So on a conceptual level, what are we really talking about? That's another thing that, it's always, where do I start? And so over the years, what's become clear is that your success in analytics takes a full framework, and it takes understanding those pieces and making those pieces work. So, number one, strive to have the technology you need. Number one, are you recording all the data? Are you pulling in all of the interaction channels? You probably are, because we are, past that point. Everybody's storing everything. But how are you going to make use of that data? How are you going to actually dive into it and do that root cause analysis? Well, you need something like neural phonetic speech analytics, which is what NICE Nexidia offers. You need architecture, like the data exchange framework that we offer. It pulls in all these channels of data. It doesn't matter, data is data. It will pull in anything you need in order to get down to that root cause analysis, to solve the problems that you need. And so once you are actually able to get down to the issues at hand by using this technology and this architecture, sure, now you've got that application. You've got that desktop for the agent. You've got that desktop for the business analysts, for the managers. Everybody is now focused on what goal you may have. It could be as simple as cost savings. It could be as complex as increased CSAT. But the point is, put that application in front of everybody so that you are now measuring and looking and deep diving. So, then you look at that last piece, the expertise. We've got to apply good expertise to analyses. And sometimes you may not have that in-house. Sometimes you may have a long-term plan of recruiting it and, pulling in business analysts. And so, seek services if you don't have the expertise so that then you can get that jump start. Learn from the experts how to put all of these little facets of your framework into place. And then that final piece is that governance. If you really want the business outcome that you want with that analytics framework, you cannot do anything. Well, you cannot, what I'm trying to say is you can't have a positive outcome without looking back and measuring. So that final piece of keeping the leadership engaged and excited is right there in the governance. It's saying not only have you solved XYZ problem, but put dollars to it, or put agents' time to it, and lo and behold, that analytics framework has now come full circle, and those business outcomes are actually happening and in operation. We've seen it time and again. And to continue that conversation, this framework, conceptually, I've explained that, well, here's kind of the big picture of just what NICE Nexidia has to offer. We've got a lot of options, and it's all based on what is the outcome that the business that we are talking to is looking for. So I talked a lot about, go real simple at your router and your IVR system. But, if that's not for you, do you want to go as far as looking at the customer journey? Do you want to know everybody's traffic patterns and touch points in the digital world? Do you want to make sure the agents are compliant and put in a good quality program? It's really a challenge. I'm challenging you as the audience. What is it that you really, really want to get out of it? And again, we offer our secure cloud. We have a really amazingly secure cloud so that there's no headache of on-premise installation. And then also we have the managed analytics services. We're here to help businesses get this solid analytics framework off the ground, or to continue it. We just work with businesses basically one-on-one. Every business is different. Every objective is different. We can give you the pattern. We know that there's a pattern across certain verticals, across certain business sizes. But in the end, there will be differences from one to another. And so that's why we seek to give you a full solution tailored to you. So I thank you for your time. And I just wanted to point you to nice.com/analytics. There are some great resources there. And please don't hesitate to contact us. We serve to really we're here to help. We've created solutions that businesses need and want. And we're happy to have a discussion. Thank you.
Great.
Back to Bob.
Hey, great. Thanks so much, Abby. But before I let you go, I was just going to ask you a quick question that came in, and And basically, you had mentioned everybody's collecting everything when it comes to data. The question is, how is data brought into Nexidia's analytics framework?
Okay, yeah, that's a good one. We call ourselves data agnostic. So what we do is we have this data exchange framework, and it will pull in data in a really smart way so that, when we're thinking about different databases, there are a lot of overlaps or repeats or empty tables, things like that. And so this data exchange framework serves to make sense of all that mishmash and start to make it be able to be analyzed. And then we overlay what we call the search grid, and the search grid then takes that smartened up data and begins to pull it together really tightly so that when people are actually probing into this data, it's real fast, get them where they need to go.
Great. And just once again, if anybody does have any questions for Abby or Doug or Jiro, just please type them in. Now's the time, and so we'll be looking forward to those. I'm going to circle back to you, Doug, because we haven't heard from you in a while. So the question is, how can I sell the value of your technology for our call center?
Well, selling the value of analytics is pretty easy if we can show results in any number of different metrics. It might be around first contact resolution or contact avoidance. In either case with those two metrics, we're talking about less total volume, and obviously there's great ROI on that. If we're looking at metrics around improving handle time, resolution time, or processing time, if the analytics can help in reducing the amount of time it takes for employees to complete a contact without negatively impacting their experience, that's an easy win, and again, great ROI on that. You might go to customer satisfaction or even segmented CSAT scores across channel, really to find out where you have your best customer satisfaction and where you need to make improvements. As Abby was mentioning, all of the different ways that our customers can contact us now. Wouldn't it be great if we can look at each one of them combined, but yet individually, to understand where are our pitfalls if we're dealing with someone via social media or email or chat or on the phone.
Great. Jiro, here's a question for you, and the question is, how do you know if you've picked the right lead metrics to impact your goals? And by the way, I thought your explanation of what a lag metric was something I'll probably not forget. That was pretty good. That was a good little hook there. So again, the question is, how do you know if you picked the right lead metrics to impact your goals?
That comes down to committing to an iterative process. I think whenever we're forging new territory, that's kind of where you need to be. And for us, the regular check-in and tracking of every proposed solution that came from our team had to be measurable. So, for example, the actual individual who came up with these, like, I want these playbooks or resources for our known use cases, is that I had this idea. They'd already looked into it. They came to the meeting looking at the data and saying, hey, I've found that this number of scenarios has come up that led to these chat interactions that were really long, and I can build a resource for that and then enable our direct team on how to use it. So one of the nice things about Looker is how quickly we can iterate our data model. So in the team meeting itself, we were able to add a new field to our model that measured any chat interaction that used a link to this resource. So within a couple weeks, we already had enough interactions and data to see whether or not this was creating the positive trend that we wanted to. So kind of just getting in there and doing it. That's one of the values that we have here at Looker as a company, is like empower your people to do things. Make sure it's measurable, make sure they're accountable for it, but try it and see what works.
All right, great. This one is actually specifically towards Abby. The question is, in reference to the Forrester 2018 AI Field Speech Analytics Solution Report, on which of the 10 criteria will NICE Nexidia put their focus on for future development? It's a very specific question. I don't know if you can speak to that, Abby.
Yeah. Well, in working with Forrester, we definitely learned a few things. And I can tell you, regardless of Forrester specifically, we do have some exciting new things that we're working on. One is with the natural language processing, our research and development is working to use this time-delayed neural network technology, and it's creating better results. We're finding a lot more accuracy with that. So it's sort of an AI-based natural language processing that they're hopefully, I think they're applying it into the software today, from my understanding. And then there's also we're doing a lot of work to bring that real-time speech analytics to the forefront. We've always had it, and we just, it's just time to dust it off and make it really sing, because real-time is kind of where everything's going. And then we also have some exciting new AI coming. We have some predictive analytics just that are going to be right out of the box that will help predict. Well, I don't want to get ahead of myself, but it's going to be exciting. So take a look for that. Take a look at that, and then we have some AI also that's going to help uncover positive and negative categories of issues. So it's an AI application on and above sentiment analysis.
Wow, sounds really exciting. I guess AI is really going to dominate things for the machine learning for the next couple of years for sure. Okay, this is a question for you, Jiro. And the question is, and I'm going to try not to mangle this question, Jiro, so bear with me. Do you advocate looking for data analytically in order to define what measures, quantitative targets, or time frames make sense? Do you get that?
Yeah, and that does make sense.
Okay.
It's a great question. So, of course, as leadership, we can have things come to us from customer feedback, any number of sources. And I absolutely do advocate for understanding a problem statement from an analytical perspective based on whatever data that you have. To dive back into the example I used, to the number of chat interactions that exceeded this 30-minute mark and what percentage of each agent had in terms of their workflow. And again, for us, there's no sense of routing, so we're not routing subject-specific questions to specific people. And what we did to actually arrive from a quantitative standpoint at these measures, targets, and time frame is we looked at individuals who were models of what we wanted to replicate, and we looked at the time it took them to have the behavior, have a behavior that was indicative of perhaps our average or even our lower end, to get to the behavior that we wanted to have across our team. And that was actually shorter than the 6-month time frame. It was about 6 months that we set for our first goal period. However, we knew that there were going to be some new features and capabilities within the product that were going to make that goal a little bit hard to achieve. And we were also going to onboard, I believe we brought in 9 new chat agents or analysts into the picture that was going to, just by the nature of their experience, drive that curve up. So we did use that data as leadership to arrive at what we thought was an achievable thing. But again, it's a little bit, you're forging new territory. You have to make your best guess at it and learn from there.
Okay, great. Doug, we actually got pretty much the same question in twice, but we haven't heard from you, so I'm gonna give you the first crack at this. It's a pretty general question, and let's just go back to it. Okay. The question is, I'm new to analytics in my call center. Where do I start? I think we know where Abby would start, but I'll ask you this time.
Well, shameless plug. It should be with Calabrio. That's where you should start, right? Well, I think if you're new to analytics, you're obviously looking at a lot of change or change coming up in your organization. I think you want to focus on developing a strong case for change. You'll want to have a clear vision of your future state, what the organization, what you want it to look like, how you want it to operate. I think you want to establish a robust stakeholder engagement or executive sponsor plan. Make sure that everyone's accountable or knows what their accountabilities are. Make sure they understand their own role in the process. And really leverage your subject matter experts, whether that's within your own organization or with your vendor. Experts that are respected with in respect to the changes you're going to make, and really engaging other people in that process.
Great. I'm going to throw this out to the group, so feel free to chime in. And the question is, it's a very basic question, but it pretty much captures the essence of what everybody's trying to do. The question is, how do you know that your customers are having a better customer experience? How is that measured? Voice of the customer programs, or how best should someone come up with those metrics? Anyone want to take a first crack at that?
I could chime in on that.
Okay, I'm glad you did, Abby.
Sure. That's one of the things that's so interesting to me about customer experience. Everything's CX, and yet customer experience is not a logical black and white sort of a thing unless you put numbers to it. So how do you measure a better experience? One example would be, and again, it goes to the individual customer, but it also goes to the larger audience. So say an analyst finds a problem. Well, if there's a problem, then it's going to have a lot of negative sentiment attached to it. So if that problem is then proactively solved, then that's that governance model. Then you can go back, you've put in a query, you've put in a report that's saying, here's my problem, look at all this negative sentiment. We'll go back, query it again, and you'll see that hopefully your numeric, negative sentiment score will have changed and it will have moved positive. That's a very simple one, but it's a great starting point.
Right. Great.
Right. Yeah, and Abby, sorry, Bob, I was gonna say the same. Essentially, you're looking for more indication of positive sentiment and a lack or falling of your negative sentiment, right? Everyone wants the same thing. They want the right answer in the right amount of time with the right attitude. And while that's, again, not a scientific answer to it, and from a putting numbers on it, it really is about delivering those three things. And when you do that, you'll have more positive sentiment, more and a lack of negative sentiment on the calls. And that's without even.
And you know what else?
Of course, you can actually ask the customers or your customers, members, whatever, about their experience and get it directly from them too.
Right, that's a good one too. One other thing I wanted to mention too, though, volume. That's another really good one. If you've got a topic that you've identified that has a negative sentiment, look also at the call volume. Once it's solved, that volume's going to drop. So not only will the sentiment go up because not as many people are calling, but not as many people are calling. So there's another measurement.
Great. Yeah, I don't know if you guys remember, but a year and a half ago, there was a study that was cited pretty regularly where companies with higher customer experience metrics basically had higher shareholder values. So somehow somebody was directly correlating it to better return on investment for investors. So there's got to be a way to do it. But all right, let's see. I'm going to circle back to Jiro because we haven't heard from you, Jiro, in quite a while. And the question is, what techniques have you used as a leader when progress isn't made towards your goal?
Yeah, thank you, Bob. I didn't really say anything because I think Abby and Doug fielded that question quite well.
Yes.
That's why I was silent. So in terms of that, again, to dive in on the role of leadership in this journey, again, dealing with people who may or may not have experience using insights from data to take action, is actually first and foremost just showing up. So what this looks like for us, if we had a particular team or some individuals that were not making progress towards their goals, was actually spending time with them to understand what their blockers were, and having a more concentrated kind of iterative process with them, and helping them form goals that made sense to them and that we could track. So I'd say the most important thing is to show up with the attitude that you're there to help them unblock and be successful as an individual within your organization. The tooling that you use to reinforce that, I think, is going to be unique to whatever you're using. Again, we just would create a personal report or dashboard in Looker for that individual or that team that they knew that was being looked at both by their leadership higher up and themselves, and that just kind of tuned them in and kind of helped them break through whatever was blocking them.
Great. Well, I see we're coming up on the top of the hour, so I'd just like to take the last few minutes just to thank everyone that joined us today on this presentation, and also everybody that asked questions. Also, I would like to thank our speakers for today, and just to kind of run through them, we've got Doug Zimmerman. He's the contact center analyst at Calabrio. We've got Jiro Weissman, manager of customer support at Looker, and Abby Monaco, Senior Product Marketing Manager at NICE Nexidia. Also, if you'd like a copy of the presentation, you can download it once the event is archived, which will be sometime tomorrow afternoon. And if you'd like to send the event to a colleague, just use the same web address that you used for today's event. It'll be archived for 90 days. But don't worry, you'll also get a email once the archive is posted, and it'll have the URL in there. And just for participating in today's event, you could win this Echo Dot. The winner will be announced on Halloween, October 31st, and we'll reach out via email. Sorry, I'm reading a question that just came in, another one. Just if you're this month's winner. So that concludes our broadcast today. Thanks so much for joining us.
Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. That concludes today's webcast. We appreciate your participation. You may now disconnect. Presenters, please stand by.